Yo, what's up, Broncos country? This is Eddie with Colorado Sports Connection, and tonight we are joined by our special guest Gage Madrid from Bronco Syndicate. So tonight, I wanted, how you doing today, Gage?
Doing well. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. So, wanted to get into some topics tonight and talk about stuff that's going to happen this year and other things that ain't really exactly Broncos related, but just touch on some subjects. So here we go. So the first thing I wanted to get into tonight is what is your realistic expectations for the Broncos this year with Bo Nix and in the midst of a rebuild? Gage.
I think that obviously expectations need to be tempered a little bit because Bo Nix is going to be a rookie quarterback. I've stated ad nauseum on Broncos Syndicate that I believe Bo Nix will be the starter come week one. And I feel like, the roster is not quite as good as it was last year in some areas of the field, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But I feel like offensively, if Bo Nix can just efficiently execute Sean Payton's system, deliver the ball, get it out on time, in rhythm, in structure, just be able to take what the defense gives him and not leave meat on the bone, not take unnecessary sacks. That's all we need for this offense to run well. I feel like the run game is going to be a big showcase factor for this offense this year. The fact that the Broncos drafted Audric Estime is going to showcase that, as well as other guys such as Javonte Williams. Hopefully he can get healthy. P. Ryan, Blake Watson, Jaleel McLaughlin. Everybody I feel like is going to play some factor in the run game. But I feel like as long as Bo Nix can just be simple, efficient, and effective, that's all we need for this offense to be successful. So I think that when you combine Bo Nix hopefully running this offense a little bit more efficiently than Russell Wilson did last year, and as well as, Sean Payton's coaching, which I feel like earned the Broncos a couple of wins last year just on its own, the Chiefs game, the Bills game, games like that. That's something that could lead this team to getting like 8, 9, 10 wins out of maybe a 6, 7 win roster.
So with that said, Gage, what do you think the Broncos record could be sitting here in June right now in the midst of, the off season? What is your prediction for the Broncos this year?
I've gone through and picked games, and it's hard to pick games, especially later on in the year, because we don't necessarily know how some of these teams we're going to play will be. But kind of like I said earlier, I think that this team could win, 8, 9, 10 games quite easily. I think that I'll settle somewhere in that sweet spot there. So I'll go 9-8, just right in the middle. But I think that this team is very much going to be in contention for a playoff spot. And I almost feel like the roles are going to be a little bit reversed this year. Last year, the defense was the main driving force behind the Broncos getting a lot of their wins. This year, I feel like the defense might take a step back because of some of the personnel changes, particularly at like safety and linebacker. But offensively, I think things are going to be a lot better. And also, I think the run defense is going to be better. So overall, I think that this team is in a position to see their first playoff appearance since 2016, or since the 2015 season, 2016, the year. And I think that this team is going to actually be a lot better than national media pundits are giving credit for.
Mohamed, what's your take?
Well, Bo Nix is definitely an upgrade from Russell Wilson. I mean, we all know that. I think the team's gonna rely on the run game. I think it's gonna be a run heavy team, especially like in the first few weeks. I do think he's gonna start, like you said, Gage. But I think they're gonna run the ball until he start like kind of gets a little more comfortable with the offense. I think that's gonna happen pretty quickly with Bo Nix. Um, for me, I think maybe like a 8 to 9 win is like where I think the Broncos gonna go. Because like we said, he's still a rookie. I mean, we kind of like need to like tamper our expectations a little bit. But yeah, like I don't see Bo Nix throwing like interceptions. I don't see him doing all kind of crazy stuff, taking sacks, all the stuff that Russ used to do. So yeah, definitely an upgrade, and the future is bright for the Broncos. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same mindset. Like you guys are saying 8, 9 wins. I think the Broncos are going to win 10. We kind of went over this a few weeks ago, me and you, Mohamed, our record predictions. I'm still sitting at the 10-7 mark. Like I believe with Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham last year, Sean Payton was able to muster 8 wins out of those two quarterbacks. And I mean, you could say Jarrett Stidham was maybe his guy last year because they did go out and get him last offseason, paid him $10 million over 2 years. But this is a guy in Bo Nix that Sean Payton handpicked himself. Like there is no other, buddy to blame at this point. That's his guy. And I believe he can squeeze at least 2 more wins out of Bo Nix. Granted, yes, I understand he's a rookie, but there is one thing I have agreed with the common theme with, the Broncos drafting Bo Nix and everything is he's the most mature NFL ready quarterback out of this year's draft. And out of, like I said, there's only 2 other quarterbacks that are maybe in good situations that are, the same age as Bo Nix or not, whichever. I mean, like I said, J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota has got Kevin O'Connell. So I think he's going to do good. And Michael Penix, who's the same age as Bo Nix, but we know he's not going to be starting unless, Kirk Cousins ain't ready to go by week 1. So I think, he's going to start the season too myself. Like, Stidham, they say, is, kind of leading the competition right now, but I really don't think that's going to last that long, into training camp. I'd say like by day 2 of training camp, Bo Nix is going to secure that job. I know that's kind of quick, but if they're even, like we've been hearing all, throughout OTAs, is they've been even, maybe Jarrett Stidham had maybe a couple, like a play or 2 more downfield than Bo Nix, but that to me doesn't really mean nothing because, it's OTA. Like, just literally just trying to learn the system, learn the playbook. So, like I said, 10-7 is mine. But I did want to touch on this with the midst of a rebuild. Like, I believe they're going to make the playoffs. If they get 10-7, I think they can make the playoffs. I know the AFC is really, really difficult this year, actually every year, because a lot of good teams. But I think 10-7 is their ceiling. Honestly, because I really don't see them winning 11 games. I really don't, or 12. But I think their floor would be 9-8, honestly.
Okay. Yeah.
What would your floor be, Gage, on the Broncos this year?
8-9.
Okay. Mohamed, what about you?
About the same, 8 to 9 wins. That's where I see him.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they make the playoffs this year, especially with a rookie at quarterback and, taking all that brunt of the Russell Wilson dead cap this year, that's going to be amazing. Like, I don't think, no one's going to expect it. If they make the playoffs, people are going to be like, wow, where'd this team come from, So that kind of dives us into our next topic. Now that Russell Wilson's in Pittsburgh, how does he make this his team? How does Bo Nix make this team his team, Gage?
I think he's already, making efforts to do that during OTAs in minicamp. Reports coming out are indicating that he has command of the huddle. He's got the attention of the guys in the huddle. They already look to him as a leader of the team. And there's some areas where you're a rookie, you kind of need to sit back and shut up in a sense. But there are other areas where you need to showcase, hey, just because you're a rookie, that doesn't mean that you can't be a key leader on this team. You got to, just, again, take command of the huddle, showcase that you're able to efficiently do your job. You're not trying to do too much. You're just trying to do what's asked of him. And as long as you can gain the respect of your teammates as well as the fan base, then you're well on your way to becoming a franchise quarterback. Those are the first key steps, is you have to gain the respect of your teammates and just be able to be that guy, have that commanding presence in the locker room, because if you're the quarterback, this has to be your team. It can't be anybody else's. It has to be your team. So I feel like Bo Nix just has to let that develop with time. You can't force it. It's going to come organically. You just have to be patient with it.
Mohamed?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same thing. As long as he's making progress from one week to another, and I'm really not even talking about us winning or losing or how many touchdowns or anything like that. As long as he's making progress from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, I think, like you said, Gage, the team will take notice. His teammates will take notice, and I think he's already kind of there. To be honest with you, with his maturity, the way he's on press conferences and all that. So yeah, as long as he's making progress, I think we're in good hands.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel the way I can see him taking this, this team over as his own personally. Like, I mean, you guys, everything you said is accurate. It's 100% correct. But the main thing I can see is like we heard all OTAs, right, and mandatory minicamp that him and Stidham were, like I said, even the entire time. I think that first week of training camp, if he goes in there and he just tear it up, just take that job, be like, you know what, Stidham, this job's mine, it ain't yours. Sit down, boy. That's the way I think he can, really take charge of this team, show that maturity, like you guys said, poise, that leadership. Just be like, you know what, I'm gonna go out there, do my thing, and I'm gonna take this job. Like, I'm not even take it really. It's like, this is my job. Stidham who, that's the way I feel about it. Like, there's like Bo Nix, he's got that maturity, he's got that family. It's not like a young rookie like a JJ McCarthy who's 21, who I'm not saying Bo Nix ain't gonna have growing pains, because I'm sure he's going to, but I don't think the growing pains are gonna be as long or as obvious as they would be with, say, JJ McCarthy or Drake Daniels, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels. With those younger guys, it's probably going to take, I'd say, maybe half a season, full season for those guys to really start getting in there. Bo Nix, I think, you get through training camp, preseason, maybe the first couple of weeks of the season, he might have those rookie struggles, but I'm thinking by like week 3, week 4, he's going to have full command of this team, full control. He's going to look like a veteran out there, like 100%. He's going to look like more of a veteran than Stidham did in preseason, or any of these young guys, or even guys in year 2, for instance, so I'm excited to see it. Like, I think that's how he makes the team his. He just goes into training camp with that attitude, like, hey, Stidham, this ain't your job. Sit down. This is mine. That's what I want to see. That poise, that attitude, that I guess you could call it, maybe just kind of being an a-hole, but that's the way I think he should do it. Just go in there and be like, Stidham, sit down. You ain't getting this job. This is mine.
And you have to remember, Bo Nix played over 60 games in college. The man's played a lot of football. Mm-hmm. He's 24 years old. He is really a lot farther ahead of the curve than these younger quarterbacks. He's taken snaps from under center before. He's ran pro-style offenses before. It's really that is something that I feel like shouldn't be undervalued when a rookie quarterback comes into the league. Is, have they taken snaps from under center before? Because the footwork is completely different. Have they so much as called a play in the huddle before? Because in college, a lot of times you're looking towards the sideline and a bunch of dudes wearing different colored shirts are like signaling in the plays and stuff like that. You're not like calling a play verbally in the huddle. A lot of young quarterbacks struggle with it. The last quarterback that Denver drafted in the first round, Paxton Lynch, he struggled transitioning into a pro-style offense because he'd never taken a snap from under center before the Senior Bowl that year. He'd never called a play in the huddle before the Senior Bowl that year. And that is something, the main reason why Trevor Siemian won that quarterback competition was because he was ahead of Paxton Lynch in that area, in those areas of the field. And Bo Nix already has that stuff mastered. And we haven't even seen him play it down yet. That is very good news. And that is why I'm so confident throwing Bo Nix out there week 1. If he struggles and throws a couple of interceptions, that's okay, because that's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you learn not to make those decisions twice. And from all reports that have come out, Bo Nix has not made the same mistake twice in OTAs and in minicamp, which is absolutely awesome. Let him learn by going through the motions. He's already got the basic execution of the operation down to a T.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I wanted to say was, I think the only bad thing I've heard about Bo Nix through mandatory minicamp, rookie minicamp, and OTAs was I heard one thing about his footwork. And I should say under center, because apparently, in Oregon, most of his snaps were taken out of the shotgun. So it was mostly about his footwork, coming in from under center, dropping back out of center. And but after I heard that report, I haven't heard nothing since then. Like, every single report I've heard since then, his footwork looks better. He's, like you said, taking control of the huddle. He's taking control of the team. He's, like he's calling, audibles and stuff and doing his, post snap and pre snap, adjustments and everything at the line. Like he's doing it all like a veteran would, like something you would see like even Peyton Manning, or I shouldn't say Peyton Manning, but even just like, just somebody that's been in the league, like a Zach Wilson that's been in the league for like 4 years, should be able to understand and get that kind of stuff down just in OTAs itself. Bo Nix is a rookie, been here for what? Just under 2 months. And he's already doing all that. Like, that's wild to me. And I agree with you, Gage. Like, if he goes in training camp or he's in preseason, he throws a few interceptions, so what? Patrick Mahomes, I believe, whenever he was his first year in training camp, he threw like multiple interceptions, And I remember, like I said, my family are Chief fans. I remember them saying, "Oh man, we drafted the wrong guy. He's not good. He's constantly throwing picks." And training camp, I'm like, me being a Broncos fan, I try not to give them comfort because I hate the Chiefs, but I was like, it's practice. He's supposed to be out there learning that kind of stuff and, throwing picks then rather than, in the regular season where it matters. Let him get the picks out in training camp. Let him get them out in preseason. And I'm sure they don't regret that now. Chief fans don't. But yeah, like I'm excited to see what he can do. Like he has to be the starter week 1. Like I don't see how you can sell Broncos country Jared Stidham. Like we saw him in 2 games last year. He wasn't downright terrible, but he wasn't like, above average. He was he was Russell Wilson in the pocket, I guess you could say, because he basically had the same numbers as Russell Wilson in those 2 games. Like what was it? 1 touchdown, 1 interception, like 100-something yards a game, which is nice, but I don't see how you sell Broncos country that. And Zach Wilson, don't even get me started. Like that kid he's gonna falter in training camp. I think he's gonna be gone by the regular season, honestly. But Zach Wilson, he's the 3rd string quarterback, and that's not gonna change. What do you think, Gage?
All right, here we go. I've been labeled as a Zach Wilson hater by Broncos country, and I don't hate Zach Wilson the person at all, and I don't hate Zach Wilson the player. He just frustrates the ever-loving crap out of me. He really does. He was actually my top quarterback in 2021. I had him slightly above Trevor Lawrence, but one thing that changed in my evaluation of quarterbacks is from that season was Zach Wilson did not go against any top-ranked opponents that year. It was almost a cupcake schedule. And I adopted the philosophy at the time, well, good throws are good throws, good plays are good plays. But once he entered the higher level of competition, he could not play with the big boys. He struggled with the stuff that Bo Nix is already excelling at: pre-snap operation, post-snap reads, calling plays in the huddle, using cadence at the line of scrimmage, just basic stuff that you have to master if you're going to be an NFL quarterback. He's still struggling with that stuff in training camp. He's scrambling out of the pocket in 7-on-7 passing drills where rule number 1 is you basically aren't supposed to scramble. That's the time where you can throw a pick, force it. That's when you learn what you can and can't get away with, is those 7-on-7 skeleton passing drills. And reports coming out from camp have indicated that he's scrambled multiple times in those drills, which is not good. That means he's not reading the defense. He's not seeing the field. His first read isn't there. He runs. He panics. That's just not a formula for success at the NFL level. I hope Zach Wilson, with some due time sitting with no chance of playing as the 3rd string quarterback, can absorb some of that information from the sideline and translate it on the field later on in his career. But he is at least 2 years away from being an NFL level starting quarterback. The Jets situation that he was in for the first 3 years of his career did not help. And of course, he was supposed to sit last year, and that plan completely went off the rails 4 plays into the year when Aaron Rodgers blew out his Achilles. Zach needs time. He's got to sit. That's why he has to be the 3rd quarterback. Stidham right now looks like the best quarterback in camp, but that's to be expected because he's been in this offense for over a full year. He's the one who has the most experience with Sean Payton. This is the time where I would expect Jarrett Stidham to be better. But if we go further on into camp, Otis is going to get a much better grasp of things, and that's when he will become the starter of this team. So, yeah, man, Zach Wilson, apparently he has not shown many signs of improvement throughout the offseason, and I don't feel like he should be in the cards for the Broncos to start. I've said on Broncos Syndicate that I feel like this should be a two-man competition for the starting job between Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix, and Zach Wilson just needs to be removed from the equation.
Mohamed?
Well, I mean, obviously I was very disappointed. I was high, just like you, Gage, on Zach Wilson coming out of college. And I just thought that he wasn't giving a fair chance going to the Jets, the coaching, all that. So when we traded for him, I was like, good for him. Now he gets a real coach. This is his chance to show what he's got and learn. But like you said, from what I'm hearing, he's not improving. He's not doing well. I think maybe it's too early, but maybe the damage cannot be reversed. You know, whatever he went through when he was with the Jets, kind of disappointed. But it is what it is. Maybe it's like you said, Gage. Maybe he needs time and stuff, and maybe one day a team would pick him or something. Maybe it's not gonna happen this season, like I thought it would. But like you said, it's gonna be Bo Nix and Stidham. I think the Broncos might cut him. I'm not sure, but that's a possibility also.
But in Zach Wilson's defense, the dude does have arm talent. I mean, James Palmer was out at camp, and he said that it was apparent which of the three quarterbacks has the most pure, raw arm talent. But I'm going to use a Mark Schlerithism here. Having arm talent doesn't mean that you can play quarterback. And that's the big thing is Zach Wilson, he's talented, but he doesn't know how to play the quarterback position. He's like a hard thrower who can't
the processor.
Yeah, exactly. So it just he needs time to learn that side of the game, and the best thing for him is to sit and learn.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Gage, I'm going to take the heat off of you because honestly, I don't care. A lot of Broncos country knows I don't care what people think, personally, come at me for. Like, I say what I say because I think it, and that is what it is. But Zach Wilson is garbage.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. I don't think he's going to get any better. I really don't. I understand he was the second overall pick. I understand the Jets probably ruined him. Salah probably ruined him. That's fine. Whatever. I understand that sucks. But it's been, 3-4 years? And I could be like, okay, I give Zach Wilson the benefit of the doubt. Yes, he has the arm talent. I give you that. But I have not seen any progression in his game over the last 4 years. None. And to me, like, if he hasn't learned it by now, I don't think he's going to. I really don't. Even with Sean Payton, like, I understand it's OTAs, whatever, but like you think with Sean Payton, even with OTAs and mandatory minicamp and all this, you think he'd be like, he'd show a little something. He hasn't shown anything. Like you said, Gage, that was one of the big reports I heard earlier in OTAs was, yeah, you're in 7-on-7 skeleton, drill. It's okay to throw picks there. He's literally taking the snap, looks, first read ain't there, bails out. And I think he ran into a sack, or it was like a sack fumble or something. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. But I'm like, come on, dude. I'm like, you've been in this freaking league for 3 to 4 years. And that's just the basic fundamentals of football. Just look over the field, just see what you see. Look at your first read, your second read, your third read. You're not going to get hit. You ain't got to worry about it. Just look and see what's out there. And then even if you would have took a chance and, like you said, threw a pick, I would have been fine with it. At least he's showing like, hey, I can, I'm trying to read the defense. I'm trying to, see who's open, who's not, But like you said, one read, boom, bails out. It reminds me of a younger Russell Wilson last year. Literally just hike, doesn't do any pre-snap or post-snap, anything. He just like hike, first read ain't there, bails out. And I'm just like, I can't. Like, I wish Zach Wilson would do good. Like, my whole thing was, I was like, I hope Zach Wilson does do good. I hope he wins the backup job. And they, like, at that point, I'm like, I don't mind if they carry 3 quarterbacks. You know, Jarrett Stidham be the third, Bo Nix is a starter, Zach Wilson's number 2. And like you said, some team comes knocking midseason, like, hey, we'll give you a 5th or a 4th for Zach Wilson because we desperately need a quarterback.
We'll
Just kind of like Josh Dobbs last year. And, but that dream is fading. Actually, it's already gone. It was fading in OTAs, and that dream for me is already gone. Like, no one's even going to give you a 7th for Zach Wilson, in my opinion. I just don't think he's worth it. And it's so sad to see because I really was hoping like a change of scenery, him coming to Denver with an offensive-minded head coach would really help him. But tell me if I'm wrong, Gage, but I just don't see it. I can't see it. Like, he hasn't made any progress at all in 4 years.
I agree, and that's my main frustration and complaint with him is he has made virtually no progress. Last year, there were some games where he looked okay, but the problem is he was so conservative and safe that the Jets couldn't move the ball. The game against the Chiefs, he was dinking and dunking his way down the field basically because the Chiefs were just playing off coverage. They weren't trying to press and they weren't trying to contest anything at the line of scrimmage. And so, yeah, Zach Wilson's first read is probably going to be open against soft zone coverage 9 times out of 10. And if he faces that in his entire career, he probably would be a halfway decent quarterback. But when things break down, Zach Wilson turns into a turnover machine. And he's shown no signs of getting better in that department. And he's still being a turnover machine in camp here in Denver. And Sean Payton, as we well know, he's not going to fly with a quarterback who is a turnover machine, who takes unnecessary sacks that kill drives, somebody who can't basically execute the offense. That's what we had last year in the other quarterback with the last name of Wilson. Right now, basically, we just have a $1 million version of all the bad stuff that Russell Wilson did. That's what we have. We don't even have the good splash plays, the red zone Hail Marys up to Sutton. We don't even have any of those prayer balls anymore. We just have all the bad stuff from Zach Wilson, and that's it.
Yeah, just like our producer here said, Eddie Bridgewater, dink and dunk QB, which was nice. Like, if you have like an all-time great defense, like the 2015 Broncos, the 2013 Seahawks, a great defense, dinking and dunking and running the ball, it works. But in today's modern NFL, it's all about, the offense, the QB, passing over the field, getting, hitting your receivers on timing routes and having that timing with them and everything. And accuracy, like defense, I think still helps win championships, but it's not the main drive anymore. You have to have a QB in order to win, and a QB that can throw the ball down the field and not bail out after just one read. Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson, I'm talking to you guys, and it's just, I agree with you, Gage. It's freaking frustrating. We saw all that last year. God forbid we see that again this year with another quarterback named Wilson. I will go insane.
He just lost confidence, I think. That's pretty much it. Zach Wilson lost his confidence, and once he loses that,
and that can be attributed to the Jets too. Destroying them. Like, this is why I say, like I said this earlier a couple of weeks ago, Mohamed. Like, all these younger quarterbacks, even Caleb Williams, like everybody thinks he's going to be a superstar, which I'm sure he probably will be, as long as Matt Eberflus is the head coach of the Bears, and I forgot who the head coach was of the Commanders with Jaden Daniels, and then you got Gerard Mayo. Yeah, Dan Quinn, thank you. And then Gerard Mayo is the head coach of the Patriots with Drake May. It's like, I don't think these quarterbacks are going to be as good. I hope they don't get their careers destroyed by these, defensive-minded head coaches. I really don't. I hope the OCs they have are really good because, the more good quarterbacks are in the league, it makes it more fun to watch. And, to me, it's like if a young QB goes to a defensive guy, to me, that's just like a graveyard for quarterbacks. It doesn't matter who the team is. Robert Saleh probably, like, he was part of that 49ers team that went to the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan back in 2019 and lost to the Chiefs. I'm not saying he's not a good, defensive guy, because he is, but I think the NFL needs to transition more to offensive coordinator or offensive guys as head coaches, because it's all about the offense. The rules are protected or help protect the offense and the QB. defenses, it's like impossible. Like you got that stupid rule that just came out. No more, what was it? Hit drop tackles. That's basically every tackle in the NFL. So how are guys supposed to play defense now? So it's crazy to me. And I just personally don't like it. And that's why I think Zach Wilson, I think he's done. I don't even think he's going to be a career backup at this point. He's going to be a practice squad guy. Somebody's going to be working at the grocery store, being on someone's practice squad in case they need a quarterback, like kind of like the 49ers a few years ago in the playoffs when they lost all their quarterbacks. Like, well, I guess we'll give Zach Wilson a try. Come on in, to maybe help them. But this kind of goes into the next topic. What can Jarrett Stidham, like him being like leading QB competition, what can these young QBs learn from him, Gage?
I gotta be honest, Jarrett Stidham hasn't played a lot of ball in the NFL. He's only started 4 games. I think that just being a leader in the locker room, learning how to watch film, stuff like that, I think that's what Jarrett Stidham can really translate. I do think that just when it comes to, on the field experience, Jarrett Stidham is kind of right at the same level. Zach Wilson obviously has more NFL starts under his belt than Jarrett Stidham does, but take what quality were those NFL starts? Jarrett Stidham has sat a year behind Tom Brady and no doubt picked up some of his film watching habits and just the way that he goes about in his preparation. And I think that's what has carried with Stidham throughout his career. That's why the Raiders brought him in. That's one of the reasons why Sean Payton likes him so much, is because he's very well prepared. So if there's anything that Bo Nix and Zach Wilson can take away from Stidham, it's being prepared, study habits, how you take care of your body, all that stuff that no doubt Tom Brady passed along to Jarrett Stidham from his year with him. And Stidham's also sat behind some other good veteran quarterbacks like Cam Newton and Derek Carr. So no doubt those two guys have also passed along some things that have helped Stidham develop and grow throughout his career. So I think that just the fact that he's been around some good quarterbacks and has learned some of their study habits and preparation habits, I think that's the best thing that he can bring to the table.
Your thoughts, Mohamed?
I mean, as you know, I'm not really high on Stidham. I think he's boring. But having said that, I think it's about the same things that Gage was talking about, leadership, the fact that he was in the NFL for a while, that, he can teach him how to, watch film, the playbook, since he's been in the system for a year, that type of thing. But for the most part, I think Bo Nix is about the same, That's what I think.
Yeah, I think Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham are about the same, but Gage, you were 100% spot on with that. Like, just, his mentality of how to prepare for games, taking care of his body, just watching film, all that stuff. Yeah, like you said, Stidham's sat behind some really good quarterbacks. Honestly, the GOAT in quarterbacks and Tom Brady. So any little piece of information he learned from Tom Brady, I think he should pass along to Bo Nix. Especially like Derek Carr. Yeah, you could use him as an example. I mean, Carr's good, but I wouldn't say great. And also, just kind of pick Stidham's brain. Bo Nix, I'm talking about here. Just pick Stidham's brain. Kind of get to know Sean Payton's system a little bit more. Like he's been in it for a year. Just be like, what's when Sean says this, what's he mean? Over here. All that and the other. Like, that's what I think he needs to do. Like, I think Stidham could be an asset, which is why, I said cut Stidham. Like, I wanted to keep Zach Wilson, like I said, for, the pick or future pick if we could get one. But like I said, now with what we just talked about, I don't even think you're going to get a 7th out of Zach Wilson this year. It's not going to – you won't even get a bag of chips out of him. So – I think Stidham's going to be the backup quarterback. He's going to be the number 2. Now, maybe Sean Payton carries 3 quarterbacks. Maybe he carries, Bo Nix as the starter, Stidham as the backup.
I think he does.
As the 3rd. I like to say that, but I brought this point up with Mohamed before, Gage, and I wanted to get your take on this. With the new rule that was implemented after that NFC title game a few years back, where I talked about it a little bit, briefly touched on it, where the 49ers lost all their quarterbacks. Like, Purdy got hurt in that game, and then their backup came in and got hurt, and they brought Purdy back in. He couldn't even throw the ball. they implemented a new rule to where I'm pretty sure on game day you can activate another quarterback to your. Well, it doesn't even take up a roster spot. You can activate a quarterback off the practice squad on game day that doesn't take up a roster spot. That way you have that third quarterback. So with that rule, I don't think the Broncos do carry 3 quarterbacks because I think he would rather use that roster spot, Sean Payton, for something else. What's your takes on that?
I think, Sean Payton's already traded draft capital for Zach Wilson. Might as well keep him here for the whole year. And yes, they did change that rule this year that you can bring the guy up from the practice squad. Last year, the third quarterback had to come off of the active roster. So in the second year of that rule, they're kind of evolving it a little bit, which I do like. But I think if you were to put Zach Wilson on waivers, some other quarterback desperate team, some other team that's trying to rehab quarterbacks and look for a quarterback reclamation project, they'll probably put in a claim for Zach Wilson. I don't think that he's that undervalued in the NFL right now. So I think if they want Zach Wilson here, he probably will have to stay on the active roster. And Stidham's proven that he's at least a competent QB2. So you might as well keep Zach Wilson here. Let him dress on game days as the third string quarterback. He'll hopefully never have to see the field. I'm hoping Bo Nix takes every non-garbage time snap for the Broncos next year. That's my hope. The only time we see Jarrett Stidham would be garbage time. So Zach Wilson, he can be in uniform on game days as a third string quarterback, but just let him sit, man. That's the thing. So I do think that he makes the active roster, and I think he'll be the active QB3.
Well, I kind of wanted to. That was a great answer, but what I was thinking is, I understand they traded a pick for him, but my thing is, you said, you put him on the practice squad, some desperate, hungry team, might come and get him. I don't think that would be true. Like, I think teams are looking around. I mean, maybe an offensive-minded head coach like a O'Connell or, maybe a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, be like, well, maybe Sean Payton could get the best out, but I could. Maybe if I put him in my system, I can get him to work. I mean, that's the only thing I could see. Because, I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, Sean Payton can't fix the kid. Like, what? Like, a defensive guy mostly. Like, how could I fix him? How could I, there's no way. It'd have to be someone like a Kyle Shanahan or a Sean McVay or something, that would be like, yeah, I'll take a flyer on him as a QB, whatever. At this point, I really don't think they're going to carry 3 QBs. I mean, I could be wrong. I hope Zach Wilson does impress a little bit and, actually starts, progressing a little bit and we do carry 3. But if that rule is still in place, I think Sean Payton's going to be like, you know what, I could use that for an extra tight end to help run the ball this year with, Bo Nix to help him, a little bit more, run the ball a lot more, kind of like they did with Russell Wilson last year. Take the pressure off Russ, run the ball a lot, and then whenever, you maybe need Russ to do something, like, hey, Russ, go make this play real quick and get us a first down or something or whatever. Or maybe even and plus they got 4 running backs. I'm sorry. They're going to want to carry 4 running backs probably too. Estime, Javonte, P. Ryan if they don't cut him, and Jaleel McLaughlin, and then the other guy. What was his name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But
Blake Watson.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's a lot of running backs. Pass rushing room. Baron Browning, Jonah Ellis, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito. I don't know if they're going to have room on this roster for a third quarterback. I could be wrong, but I just feel like Sean would want to put that roster spot somewhere else. So moving on from that topic, the next topic we got is could Justin Fields start in Pittsburgh? Now, this is one of my favorite points that we're talking about tonight because I'm crazy about it. But thank you, man. Thank you for chiming in with that. But Gage, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think it's possible Justin Fields could start over Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh?
I do. I really do. If Justin Fields comes into training camp, despite what Mike Tomlin is saying that Russell Wilson is the entrenched starter, if Justin Fields comes in there and he's very clearly looking like the better quarterback, players will recognize that. Players will basically pound the table for Mike Tomlin to start Justin Fields. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Not necessarily, but I also wouldn't completely throw it out either. You know, Mike Tomlin's a player's coach. He's going to listen to his veteran leaders on the team, like Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, guys like that. And they could very well vocalize, you know, guys on the offensive side of the ball like Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, George Pickens, all those guys, they could be vocal to Mike Tomlin, whichever way it goes. If Fields is the best quarterback or Russell Wilson is the best quarterback, that's the guy that those players would want to play. Now, I do believe that at some point, Justin Fields is going to start this year. I think Tomlin's going to be a little bit more stubborn and probably will go into week one with Russell Wilson and give Russell Wilson at least the first few weeks to showcase what he can do, just because of his language and how stubborn he is. But again, man, players are going to see who the better quarterback is, and it's going to be a tough sell job to throw clearly the inferior quarterback out there. So if Justin Fields clearly looks better than Russell Wilson, yeah, he will start week one. I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but it's all gonna really depend on Mike Tomlin's mindset, as well as what the vocal leaders in the locker room are saying about the quarterback position there. I'm curious to see what Mark's thoughts on this are. Steelers Nation Australia, a good friend of ours, former host of the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate.
Mohamed, what's your thoughts on that?
I think Russell Wilson is going to start. Depending on how he plays, well, we all know. I think eventually Justin Fields is going to be the starter, but it's going to take some time. I think Tomlin's going to give him some time. And as long as Russ plays week 2, then I honestly don't care what happens after that. Just want to play him, and then they can do whatever.
Well, the Broncos fan in me wants Russell Wilson to be the starter come week 2, like that, because I just want I want him to come to Denver, and I want Bo Nix to go out there and just, you know, be like, hey, Russ, this is how you play quarterback, you know, an actual quarterback, and not just the guy that runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. But the football fan in me, I want to see Justin Fields. Like, I think Justin Fields has got, you know, of course, he's got more of a ceiling than Russell Wilson at this point. And, you know, I think he would make the Steelers better, you know, with that mobility. You know, of course, Russell Wilson used to have that, but he's, you know, he's much older now. He doesn't have that same athleticism, mobility as he once did. Justin Fields does, and all he is a younger version of Russell Wilson. So as a football fan, I would love to see him start for the Steelers. Now, who do I think is going to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? Gage, I'm right there with you. It all depends on what happens in training camp, what all happens in preseason. Like, if Justin Fields is clearly the better quarterback, you can't in good conscience be like, yeah, we're going to go with Russ. You know, he's the older veteran. We're going to go with him, even though Justin Fields is out here, you know, winning the competition when Tomlin said there wasn't one, but we all know that's baloney.
And then Arthur Smith said there was one.
There you go. So, yeah, I believe Russell Wilson probably will start. I think he'll edge out Justin Fields just barely. I think if it's even at all, I think they're going to go with Russ. You know, they're like, you know, they didn't pay much because to me, like, giving up draft capital is more of a, you know, commitment than, you know, giving up what is it, a veteran, like 1.2 million or something. So I think even a 6th round pick, I think that's more of a commitment given up for a quarterback than 1.2 million for a guy that's literally getting paid and probably not even going to be on the roster next year after 2024. So I, you know, think Russell Wilson's going to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields does win that competition. And like I said, like Broncos fan, I want Russell Wilson to, you know, start at least, like Mohamed said, get him to week 2. After that, I don't care what you do. You can bench him, you can cut him, you can do whatever. I just want him to play against the Broncos. But that's the other big point I want on this too, because like at the same time, if they're even, I would go with the higher upside guy, because there's a lot of talk, and I know in Pittsburgh's, you know, fan base that if the Steelers go under 500 this year, could Mike Tomlin be fired? I've heard that a lot, and you know, the lighter their schedules, the early mid part of the season. I think like after week, what was it, 10 or something, or week 9, it's a gauntlet. They got they got the Ravens twice, the Bengals twice, the Browns twice, the Eagles, and the Chiefs in the last like 9 games. Like that's not easy. Like if they're teetering at like 500, by like week 8 or 9, going into the gauntlet of their schedule, like or if they're under 500 at that point, like Mike Tomlin's going to be like, oh, there goes my 500 records. I doubt he's going to be over 500 going into there. If he's at 500 by midseason or under 500 by midseason, he's going to be under 500 by the end of it after going through that, because I doubt they're going to win even half those games. But that's just crazy to me. But with that said, I wanted to move on to the next topic of conversation, which is which coaches do you guys think are on the hot seat this year? I'll start with you, Gage.
Well, I just wanted to talk on Mike Tomlin for a second since we'd already brought him up. It's hard for me, just like from a longtime football fan, it's so hard to imagine Mike Tomlin actually being on the hot seat. But when you think about it, he's really putting all of his stock into Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. If both of those quarterbacks turn out to be lemons, then maybe the Rooneys finally get fed up and pull the plug. They are historically a very patient organization. As we all know, they've only had 3-4 head coaches in their entire franchise's existence. They've said themselves that head coaches here retire, they don't get fired, but I feel like Mike Tomlin, things might be starting to get a little bit stale in that locker room. Mike Tomlin will always put out an elite defense. Every single year, the Steelers are going to have an elite defense. It's a given. But I feel like offensively, the production just has not been there, both in the last couple of years of the Ben Roethlisberger era and heading into the post-Ben Roethlisberger era. He held on to Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator way too long, and in my opinion, he hired another stale, boring offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. He's put his stock into some boomer bust guys on the offensive side of the ball, both at the quarterback position as well as the offensive coordinator position. And he's got to be right. And if he's not right, then the Rooneys might actually get fed up and they might actually cut ties with him. It's going to be really, really hard for me to envision that, but it's very possible. As far as other coaches that are on the hot seat, Dennis Allen is one that immediately comes to mind of the New Orleans Saints. He's something that probably should have been fired last year. One of the worst head coaches in the NFL in terms of game management. Clearly, the players don't like him. That was evident with the whole Jameis Winston give the ball to Jamal Williams instead of take a knee on the final play of the year against the Falcons. That obviously was a big firestorm on social media after that when Jameis Winston said basically that Dennis Allen told him to go out there and take a knee, and he was like, yeah, no, I'm good. That means that Saints players clearly did not respect Dennis Allen as a coach. So he's somebody that I'm looking at. Matt Eberflus, we've already talked about him. If Matt Eberflus ends up underachieving, if that Bears team looks like crap, then he could be gone. He's done a good job with the defense, especially last year, but offensively, it's all going to ride on how well Caleb looks. And if Caleb struggles, then I think Eberflus is out. So he's one that's on the top of the list. Brian Dable in New York could be another one. Obviously, he made the playoffs in his first season, and last year was just a complete and total disaster. The decision to play Daniel Jones could be the undoing of that entire regime. I feel like, their GM and their head coach could both be gone there. So those are the ones that I can think of just off the top of my head, but I know there are plenty others as well.
Mohamed, what's your take?
I'm thinking of the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott. I mean, come on, you got all this talent, and you're just kind of wasting it. You keep going to the playoffs, and then, you get everybody's hopes up, and then you lose and stuff. So I think if he doesn't do anything this year, I don't think this season, I don't think he's going to do anything. I think he might be fired, because you're wasting that talent. Dennis Allen, same thing. Probably got another year. If things don't turn around, they might just say bye. Their quarterback could be gone too. They might just go ahead and get a new coach and draft a quarterback. Who else am I thinking of? I think those are the main two that I got.
Oh, I got one more. Mike McCarthy. I think Mike McCarthy is very much on the hot seat this year. If the Dallas Cowboys miss the playoffs or see another first-round playoff exit, I think Mike McCarthy is getting canned.
Yeah, my main two, you touched on both of them, Gage, was Sean McDermott and Matt Eberflus. Yes, I understand Caleb Williams is a rookie quarterback, but that offense that they stacked up around him this year, taking him first overall, which to me, like, I always thought was kind of silly. Like, if you know you got a lame duck head coach sitting there waiting to be fired after the season, if you're waiting to see how the season plays out, see if you're going to keep your head coach and you draft a quarterback, that just to me, it's like, okay, so now he's going to have another new offensive scheme to learn next offseason, which I'm not saying Caleb Williams is smart enough to do it. It's just, it puts a lot more pressure and, it's a lot harder on the young QB at that point. But Sean McDermott is my main one. Like, I liked all the other ones about Dayball, Mike McCarthy, Dennis Allen, which is a big one. I think the Saints, if they don't do anything this year, they're going to rip that whole thing down. They're still way over the cap. Just get rid of the offense or get rid of the coaches, cut all the players, bare bones the team, get your team above cap, the negative cap. That way you can maybe start thinking about rebuilding the team and stockpile your picks. But, Sean McDermott, come on, man. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. Like, you took him, what was it, 6th overall? You've already paid the guy once. And, he's like, I know a lot of people compared him to John Elway. He's got the gunslinger arm. He's big. He's, he can move. Like, you got probably the best quarterback out of all those coaches we just talked about on the hot seat. And every year, you remind me of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in the postseason, just constantly getting beat. When you had a great roster, you had a top receiver, you have a top quarterback, you had a great defense. The year they made the AFC Championship game, which in my opinion they should have made the Super Bowl that year, but they lost to the Chiefs. Like, Sean McDermott's got to be on the highest seats in my opinion. Like, Matt Eberflus, you can talk about his shortcomings before Caleb Williams. Now he's got his quarterback, but he's only got one more year. Brian Daboll sticking with Daniel Jones. I understand, and I agree with you on that one, Gage, too. Like, he could have took a quarterback this year. But once again, maybe they're in the same aspect. Like, Brian Daboll is a lame duck head coach. We don't want to take a quarterback this year. We're going to, go out and get Drew Lock and bring him in and hope for the best this year and take a receiver and give our quarterback a weapon. Mike McCarthy, I don't know. Like, I want to say he's going to get fired, but with how stubborn Jerry Jones is about moving on from head coaches, like, they could make a freaking wild card exit and he'd be like, yeah, we're going to keep Mike McCarthy for another year. And, at that point, it's like, well, what are you going to do with quarterback? Because Dak's going to be out of here after this year unless they pay him, which, they got to pay Lamb and they got to pay Michael Parsons. So I'd be paying those two guys over Dak any day. And who was Dennis Allen? That one, I don't even think that's a debate. That's going to happen. Like, I don't think – didn't they lose like Michael Thomas and some other players on defense this offseason, Gate? I can't remember.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, so I think that team's heading for a rebuild. I think this is Dennis Allen's last year. I think he's going to probably be the first one fired if you ask me. But on the highest seat, I do believe it will be Brian Daboll. If they come out this year and they play like they did last year, like, how they were like mid-season whenever we went there and we beat them, and I think they were like 5-5 at that point, he's done. Like, you can't have a superstar quarterback and keep failing every year in the playoffs. Like, unless you're the Cowboys, that coach shouldn't last that long, I would think. So any other opinions and anything on this topic you guys want to talk about before we move on?
I was thinking of one more, actually. That's kind of a bit of a dark horse, and it's actually Doug Peterson. I think the Jaguars last year completely botched several decisions. They played Calvin Ridley at the wrong position last year, first of all. There was a video that Alex Rollins put out. It was a film study of why Calvin Ridley should have been played as the Z receiver off the ball, not seeing press coverage, as opposed to the X receiver where they played him. And he could have potentially truly had an elite season. He had a good season last year, over 1,000 yards, multiple touchdowns, but he could have been a true dynamic difference maker if he'd been used correctly, and he just wasn't. Trevor Lawrence was trotted out there when he was clearly injured at the end of the year and not himself. They should have sat Trevor earlier than they did. They did finally have to sit him because he was just too injured to play in a couple of games. And then he comes back for that final game against the Titans, and they lose that game. They miss the playoffs. I think that the Jaguars have botched a lot of organizational decisions, and I think Doug Peterson could be on the hot seat if the Jaguars miss the playoffs this year. They're trying to open their Super Bowl window right now. They've committed to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is going to be there through the long term, but if they fall short of expectations again and they miss the playoffs, then I could see Doug Peterson also getting the axe.
You got anything you want to add, Mohamed? Mic's off.
No, I was just thinking, just to add to what Gage was saying earlier. Yeah, Mike McCarthy. I could see him getting the axe if the Cowboys don't really perform this season. I think Dak is probably gone too. That's what I want to say.
No, it's like I wasn't even thinking about Doug Peterson, Gage. That was a good point, but that I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, but man, that would be hard. 3 head coaches and 4 or 5 years for Trevor Lawrence. Man, that's gonna be rough on that kid. I feel bad for him if they do fire Doug Peterson. I understand it if they do. Now that you said that, you can't keep. You can't have your quarterback of the future and just keep losing like that and missing the playoffs. What was it, 2 years ago? They were in the playoffs. They beat the Chargers. The Chargers choke because it's the Chargers, but I can't remember who they played in the divisional round, but I'm pretty sure it was the Chiefs,
and they almost beat them.
Yeah.
No, they took the Chiefs almost to the woodshed. They played well in that game.
Yeah, but I'm saying they still lost. So it's like, now that your quarterback's got the bag, you want to win now. Now you can't really put as many pieces around him as you wanted to before. So, but talking on Trevor Lawrence, the last topic of the night is now that Trevor Lawrence got the bag, who is the next quarterback in your minds to get an extension, Gage?
Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is going to be talked about. He's somebody that I'm not quite as high on paying, I should say. Then in a couple of years, you're going to have CJ Stroud. I'm trying to think who's the other quarterback this year that's up for an extension.
I think there's 2, Jordan Love and maybe even Brock Purdy.
Jordan Love, yep. Brock Purdy. Those are guys, Jordan Love is probably going to be in line for a really big payday considering how he finished the year last year. He had a really sensational end to last year, and if he continues that into this year, early in the year, I anticipate Jordan Love securing the bag. Brock Purdy is another one where there might be some debate about the 49ers. Do they want to pay their quarterback or do they want to keep all those pieces that they have on their roster? The Fred Warners of the world, the George Kittles of the world. Do they want to keep all the depth that they have on that roster and maybe try their hand again at a young quarterback? I've seen that possibility discussed on a lot of 49ers centered podcasts because Brock Purdy, is he that guy that's going to take you to a championship? Is a Super Bowl appearance your ceiling with a guy like Brock Purdy? You know what I mean? So that's a conversation that's going to have to be had. The same conversation is going to have to be had about Tua. But thus far, the Dolphins have made moves that are going to indicate that they're going to extend Tua. They let Christian Wilkins walk in free agency as opposed to giving him the bag. That it just looks like they're going to pay Tua Tagovailoa, but I'm concerned that their roster is going to really suffer because of it. Are they going to be able to afford to continue paying Tyreek Hill later down the road? Jalen Waddle? That's just a lot of conversations. And the quarterback market has been completely reset over this last year and a half. Ever since really, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, I'm trying to remember which one it was that really completely changed this whole dynamic. The Patrick Mahomes 10-year, $500 million deal, that was one of them, obviously. I think it's going to be. Yeah, that was also another one. That was also another one for sure. And then Dak Prescott, he's another one that is going to be in line to either be extended or some other team is going to pay him a significant chunk of money. There's been a lot of rumors. Like I was listening to the Insiders podcast with Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, and Judy Batista, and they said that Dak could very easily be the first quarterback to break the $60 million per year barrier, which is nuts.
That too much for him. But Mohamed, what do you think?
I think Jordan Love definitely should get paid. As far as like Tua, if I was Miami, I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't pay him. I'd probably try to draft a quarterback. Dak, I think he's going to be cut, but I mean, he's going to be released, I guess, by the Cowboys. I think he's got like a year left, right, in his contract?
Yep, this year's it.
Yeah. I don't see the Cowboys. They're probably going to draft a quarterback also, but somebody is going to pay Dak. Hopefully it's not the Broncos, but somebody is going to sign him and pay him. That's just going to happen. That's how things go. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
No, I think the main one for me is Brock Purdy. The reason why I say that, like Jordan Love, I agree with you guys. Like he, with the youngest team in the NFL in years, like he got him into the playoffs. They played well. But I think Brock Purdy, he's been to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. Now, yes, I understand you can credit that to the roster. You can credit that to Kyle Shanahan, but it doesn't matter in the NFL. When a quarterback makes a Super Bowl, they're going to get paid. And I don't want to say that Brock Purdy is going to be the first, like you said, Gage. It's probably going to be Dak, but I don't think Brock Purdy is going to break that $60 million. I think he might get paid maybe $50 to $55 million because I think that's starting to become the average now for quarterbacks. A year is about $50 to $55 million. So I think and keeping the pieces on the team, that's one thing. But I mean, if you're Kyle Shanahan, how can you keep just going back to the well like every 4 years to get a quarterback? If you got your guy, pay him. Like, I doubt the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan want to spend 3 first-round picks or, even 2 on a quarterback again after the Trey Lance debacle. So that's my big one is Brock Purdy, then Jordan Love. Dak Prescott, man, whoever pays him $60 million, they better have a freaking stacked team because that kid can't even win with a freaking good team. He had one of the best receivers in the game, one of the best pass rushers in the game, the Dallas Cowboys, who everybody knows, but at the same time, like if Dak goes to a different team, we're not going to talk about him as much. He's not going to be this guy. The only reason why is because he's on the Cowboys.
Yeah,
right?
that market. Yeah.
So but my biggest one is, Brock Purdy, like I said. I'm sure there's a couple others. I think Josh Allen might be coming up again for another contract. He got paid a few years back. I think he's coming close to the end of his. I think that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, Brock Purdy is the main one for me. Like, I think he should get paid. Like, of all the quarterbacks we mentioned, and Tua, like, personally, I don't think the Dolphins should pay him.
Agreed.
Like, I really don't. I don't. I think they'd be better off going back to the well and letting – because wasn't Tua there before Mike McDaniel got there?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
He was drafted before. I'd say let Tua walk or trade him, whatever you want to do, and let Mike McDaniel go into the draft next year and maybe trade up and get his quarterback in the future. Let him decide and handpick his own guy and then go from there. Like if you want to keep this roster intact, like you said, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they had to let some pieces go on defense. Like I'd say let Tua walk or trade him, get some picks for him, and then use those picks and whatever you got. And let Mike McDaniel, because the Dolphins, I think they're going to probably be, well, if they let Tua play this year, they're probably going to make the playoffs. So they're probably going to have a low draft pick next year. So, let him walk or trade him, get some picks, and let Mike McDaniel go get his quarterback of the future. Anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we get out of here tonight? We're at 1:03 right now.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Gage, we really appreciate you coming on to the show tonight, man. It's been a real pleasure. We appreciate all that.
Hey, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on. This was awesome. Really fun conversation, man.
Thanks, Gage. It was a pleasure, honestly.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys so much.
Welcome to come back anytime.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for us tonight, guys. And we will talk to you guys next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And this is Eddie with Colorado Sports Connection saying peace.